Thank you, Rory. And good afternoon, everyone, members of the Newmark Advisory Board, other members of the Jewish community, and our guest senators. We're very excited about this program. My name is Phyllis Marcus. I'm chair of the Newmark Institute for Human Relations at the Jewish Community Relations Council. The Newmark Institute, inspired by the legacy of Michael and Barbara Newmark, who are with us virtually today, is committed to the concept of a pluralistic society where diverse religious, racial, and ethnic groups live and work together, and where their differences enhance the community. It is in that setting that Jews in America have thrived. During a time of great divides, we are dedicated to advancing pluralism by organizing, supporting, and promoting programs and activities that foster good human relations between people of diverse backgrounds. Our speakers today are a model for working towards that end, and in a contentious climate, we're able to find ways to have civil discourse and work together. We are so grateful to all of the senators who have taken time out of their incredibly busy days to join us today. I want to especially thank our longtime friend, Senator Jill Schupp, who helped us organize this program today. Jill is actually a member of the Newmark Institute, a Democratic member of the Missouri Senate, representing the 24th District, consisting of the western suburbs of St. Louis County. Previously, Jill represented the 88th District in the Missouri House of Representatives. Throughout the entire history of Missouri, more than 1,150 individuals have served in the Missouri Senate. Just 36 of them were women. Now, the 11 currently serving female members of the Senate, members of both party and the largest contingent in state history, have produced a book recalling the lives of these women in hopes of inspiring young readers and encouraging literacy. The book, You Can Too, Journey to the Missouri Senate, 36 women senators share their stories, celebrates the inspiring contributions of female state senators and retraces each lawmaker's path to the state's upper legislative chamber. Today, we are so fortunate to be hearing from Senator Schupp, as well as Senators Elaine Gannon, Angela Mosely, Holly Thompson Rehder, Barbara Ann Washington, Cindy O'Laughlin, and Carla Esslinger, all in consideration of that their time will allow them to visit with us. Our program today will be approximately 1 hour, and I'd like to note that we have some of the senators with us now, and we know that some of you will have to leave before 4 p.m. We thank you for any amount of time you're able to share with us today. We also might have some senators join us a bit late. I'm going to pass the baton to Senator Schupp, a member of the Newmark Institute, to let her introduce her colleagues. We're going to invite our guests to share their stories, their journey to the Senate, and how they've learned to overcome partisan divides, and then allow for some Q&A. Jill, thank you so much.
Thank you, Phyllis. I want to say that some of the senators who were named are actually not going to be here, but I also want to say I'm so excited to have joining us today, Senator Lauren Arthur. So thank you, Senator, for being here too. I'm going to walk through and just kind of have you raise your hand or signal, Angela, if you're not on the screen, and let us know who you are. But we have Senator Holly Thompson Rehder, who is a Republican from the Sikeston area, District 27. And as I stated a little bit earlier, she and I have been sort of taking the show on the Zoom road and talking to a lot of members of the press. And her story is one of many that moved me so much, that this was a woman who came from very different childhood that I grew up in, and who has overcome a lot to serve as a state senator. And I think that everybody's story is so unique. So I think you're going to want to get your hands on some child's book, You Can Too, and take a good look at it. Senator Lauren Arthur, who I mentioned, and I'm just going across my screen. So Senator Arthur represents the 17th district in the Kansas City area. Senator, so glad to have you here today. And Senator Arthur, I've got to tell you her story. I was collecting the stories as we were going along, and her story was so well written that it made me change the way I was looking at how we wanted to present these stories. So Senator Arthur, in addition to being a great senator, is really a pretty amazing writer too, I have to say. So thanks for being here. Going across, I see Senator Angela Walden-Mosley. Senator Mosley is new in the legislature, serving in the Senate. So this is her first political role, I believe. She is a Democrat from North County, District 13. So happy to have you here. I served in the House with her sister many years ago. So I hope that was adequate, Angela, and we will talk some more as we go forward. Let me see who else is, maybe somebody's on page 2 that I've missed. Sorry, I'm trying to read all the names as we go through. I think that we have the senators that are here. Is there any senator I missed? All right. As they come in, I'll try to see them and talk about what we're doing. I think that your introduction, Phyllis, was perfect to sort of set things up, but I will just tell you that we, the 11, as I like to call us, were invited to a dinner where we started talking about what this historic number of women in the Senate could do in order to make a difference for the constituents, for the people we represent in Missouri. And we had a lot of ideas, but we focused on the issue of literacy and decided that it would be important to provide opportunities to everyone by making sure that every child could read. And that became our focus. And the book was a result of that focus. We wanted to talk to young people and say, here are our stories. Maybe someone's story resonates with you or maybe inspires you. And we want you to know that you can too. So we started about a year ago in March. In the book, I'll just show you this at the back. We have a mirror that so that a child can see him or herself reflected in that. We have a treasure hunt on the back of the book to get kids scrolling through them. But every one of us wrote our story. Every one of the 36 of the women who have served, or if they have passed on, a friend or family member wrote that. Trying to tell your life story in 250 words or less. Your journey to the Senate was not easy, but everybody did a great job of getting their stories in and really working hard to make them what they wanted them to be. This is, through this process, what I don't think I expected to have happen was that I feel like our relationships got elevated to a new level. And we became not just colleagues, but also people who were much more friendly with each other, much more willing to hear and understand and talk to each other. So I want to give my colleagues each a chance to talk about their experiences with writing this book. We hope to be traveling the state to talk about our work and to make sure we're promoting literacy everywhere. Senator Rehder, would you like to start?
Sure, yes, and thank you so much. It has been such an honor, and Senator Schupp, I have enjoyed every minute of us being tag teaming on the Zoom. It has really helped me and encouraged me to get out there and want to show the book more and go to the classrooms myself and present them. Because I do think that it's been such an important project. And with myself, my story is that I was raised on welfare. My mother struggled with mental illness our whole life. And when things would get, not be going our way, we'd get on a Greyhound bus and go to the next location. So from the end of my 3rd grade to the beginning of my 10th grade, when I quit school, we had moved over 30 times. And so I quit school at the beginning of 10th grade to help take care of my family because we were in a really bad car accident. And then by the time I was 15, and then I got married at 15 and pregnant and had my first baby at 16. So I was a high school dropout with a baby on my hip at 16. And I realized that I didn't want my life, the same life I had, to be the life that I gave my daughter. And so I put my head down and I worked. And And it took me, I got my GED. It took me 17 years to get my college degree, but I got it while I was working full time and raising a family. And, you know, at every turn, God just opened doors for me, and having him as my compass has been very important my entire life. And raising my children in church has been incredibly important my entire life. Um, this book to me was so important because with all of the amazing stories from these incredible women, when I think about the kids at risk that I go and talk to in the schools, I just see hope in their eyes when I talk about my background, and it surprises them. And usually it's fourth and fifth graders that we go get asked to come speak to, and it's always so surprising to them. And I have kids that talk to me about, you know, well, their mom is on drugs, or, you know, their stepdad this, or their mama's boyfriend that. And it breaks my heart because I remember those days, and I remember dealing with all of that, and not really having a hope. I didn't have somebody that worked in my household, so I really didn't have a visual of what my potential was. And I think that this book really gives that to children who might not have that from home for whatever reason. You know, like I said, my mother struggled with mental illness from years of abuse since she was a child, a very small child. And so I think that the hope that this book brings, being in the library at those schools, and us going around the state and talking to children about it, I don't think that that can really be measured. And I think that we'll see many years to come of that being just a beautiful legacy for us.
I'm sorry, I'm muted. Thank you, thank you, Holly. Lauren Arthur, Senator, would you please talk to us about your story, or about what putting this book together and working on this literacy project have meant to you?
Sure. Thank you so much for including me in this discussion. And we're back in Jefferson City after spring break, and this is just the positive note I need to start my week on. So I appreciate that opportunity. I'm Lauren Arthur. I represent a district in the Kansas City area, sort of suburban Kansas City and Clay County. I'm very lucky that I grew up in an area that I now get to represent in the Missouri Senate, and I get to represent my parents, and that's as much fun as it sounds. They hold me accountable in so many ways, but I felt very supported by my family and by my community, by my school system. And I was interested in giving back and making sure that, you know, any privilege I received from the way I grew up, that I could return that to the community. I went into teaching. When I graduated from college, I remember meeting with someone, and at the time I thought, I want to go around the world and make an impact and change the world. And the person that I met with said, "That's really great. I hope you realize that there's a lot of need back home." And so I came back to Kansas City, and I taught 6th and 8th grade in a low income community. I saw that so many of my students came to school after overcoming obstacles that I couldn't imagine as an adult. And so I really wanted to be an advocate for them and make sure that they had all of the opportunities that I got to enjoy as a child. And that's really what prompted my decision to run for public office, even though I was very shy and had no interest in public service otherwise. So I decided to run. I served for 4 years in the House, and then in a special election, I flipped a Senate seat. And as you can hear from Senator Schupp and Senator Rehder's stories, you know, I have over that dinner and you know, subsequent weeks after, I developed such a personal admiration for my colleagues, and a real understanding of why they're here and what they're trying to accomplish. And I think building that important foundation has allowed us to find so much common ground. And, you know, there are definitely differences of opinion on various issues, but I think we're able to start from a place of respect. And that makes those conversations go so much more smoothly. And I think there's been a shift where we're really focused on what can we get done for the people we represent, because there is a lot of commonality, whether you represent a district in Kansas City or the people of Scott County. So it's been really encouraging. I think often political gain comes from polarization. That's sort of the way our political system has developed. But the reality is we're all here to help make people's lives better. And we're looking for common understanding around how to do that. And we've come up with some great ideas. After we developed the book, we knew that we wanted to take the literacy issue further. And with Senator Schupp's help and Senator O'Laughlin and Esslinger, we crafted a literacy bill that just passed unanimously out of the Senate. And if you've heard anything about how things are going in the Senate, that's a pretty major lift. So we're really proud of that accomplishment. And most importantly, I think it's going to make a real difference in student outcomes and ensuring that we're setting our kids up for success now and down the road. So look forward to answering any of your questions and looking forward, most importantly, to continuing this work with my colleagues.
Thank you, Lauren. Senator Mosely, would you sort of give us your story and your belief about how working together has changed things for you in this early stage of your political career? And Senator, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I was trying to wait for my husband to finish ordering our food. So that's why it was taking me a little while to respond. But yes, I'm Senator Angela Walden-Mosley. I represent Senate District 13 is in North St. Louis County. My road to the Senate, I grew up in a political family. My father started it off as state alderman and state rep, and pretty much got the family involved in politics through him and watching him. I initially did not think I would ever decide to run for anything, but you know, as you get older and you see things going on in the world, you start thinking I need to get involved, more involved to make a change. So first seat that came available was the state rep seat, but I still had children at home and in school, so I decided I didn't want to run at that time. So my husband decided that he would run instead of me. So I figured that I'll just wait till he finished his 8 years and then I would come behind him. But as fate would have it, the Senate seat became open. So I decided, well, why wait? You know, I'll jump on in and run for the Senate instead. And it was a hard road. I had to run against two sitting state reps. I had a lot of negativity coming my way, telling me, why are you running? You can't win. You're running against two people that's already in seats with name recognition and things like that. But I knew that I can put the work in and still win. So I did just that. I put the work in and came out on top. This is my first elective seat that I've held. I didn't know at the time of running, but after winning, I was told that me and my husband were the first couple to serve at the same time in Missouri, which was exciting to find out. There's also a couple in Mississippi that's serving at the same time, we found out. But being a senator, one of the things that I do try to focus on is getting more diversity on the boards and commissions, because I had seen that it's not a lot of diversity. So that was one of the things that I set forth to work on. I knew as a Democrat, a minority, that I wouldn't be able to get a whole lot of things done in that perspective, but I do try to get some bipartisan bills passed, and was successful to get one passed last year. As everyone has said, we all got together, one night, not knowing what would come out of that night, and ended up coming up with this great idea to write this book. And it was exciting to show it to my granddaughter, who's 7 years old, and to show her to look, it's your 90 in the book. And she's like, "What are you doing in the book?" But that was pretty exciting. But that's my story, and I'll answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Angela. Are there any other senators on the call that I haven't seen? I've tried to scroll through. If you are unmute, okay. So Rory's saying no. So I will tell you that in addition to this book, or since this book was written and as we were putting it together, we're still in the process of making plans to travel around the state. This got done in less than a year, which I think is pretty amazing, printed and published. The Missouri Humanities Council actually paid for this book to be printed, and Missouri Life, they have Missouri Life magazine. They put it together for us, did all the artwork. And anyway, I think they did a pretty amazing job. So I want to give them credit. And I know, so we are delivering them in our districts to every, I hope everybody is, to every fourth grade class, both the men and the women in the Senate, to every fourth grade class and to every school library in our district. And what we want to make sure is these books are in the hands of kids. If you would like a book, you can buy one online through MissouriLife.com. We don't get, nobody that I know gets any money from it. They're just available that way too. So it's not like we're trying to raise any money. We just want you to know that they are out there, and we are doing our very best to get them to kids around the district. We are sending them mostly to public schools, but we want all fourth grade kids to have access to them. So if you are aware of a private school that you think needs to have this book or might be interested, we are happy to get them delivered. We have a lot of them, and there is no reason for them to sit in the basement of the Capitol. I was asked if I wanted to tell my story, so I will briefly, and I think I saw Rabbi Stiffman on the call. So part of my story goes back to Rabbi Stiffman talking to my Sunday school class and saying, oh, and Holly's going to need to leave in 5 minutes. So you know what, Holly, I may want to just pause and come back to you, because I know that we've been working together and you've been working across the aisle on many bills. I don't know if you want to talk about the FRA story and how we as the women senators came together, but we can do something like that before you have to head out to your meeting.
Well, if you don't mind, I will leave the FRA story to you guys, but I will say that one thing I did want to mention before I have to go is, right now we're working on a bill that has several different prongs, and it is a bill to help victims of sexual assault. And Senator Schupp and our bills were merged together. So we are joint sponsors of this, and we have found ourselves at odds with several in the Senate, just because of antics and tactics that happen with other people trying to put their things on your bill. But it has been, I can't say how important it has been to me as a survivor myself, and just the fellowship and the strength from the other women senators. When I came off the floor the other night, two of the women senators, one from both parties, almost beat me to my office to come in and say, how can we help, and and to hug me and to say, this is, we've got to get this across. And so as Senator Schupp and I are out there battling with everyone, to have these other women senators, Senator Arthur stood up and made some of the best points that could be made against the amendment that was getting added on. And I just can't say that the love and the importance that it has been, the women coming together and being able to work on these things that are for Missourians as a whole, and not left or right, but to absolutely be helpful to society and to have the backing of each other. It's incredible. And I think we're going to see more of that happen in the coming weeks. And thank you all so much for having me. I hate slipping out, but man, I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rehder. Great to see you, and I'll see you in a little bit on the floor. So briefly, I'm sorry, I'll go back to my story if that's okay. Lauren and Angela, are you okay to stay for a bit? Okay, Angela, I'm assuming you are, or you would let me know. Good. Okay. So Rabbi Stiffman mentioned, I must have been in second grade, but talked about how problems were solved in the synagogue, that people would come to the temple and things that had gone on in the community, and there was discussion and debate, and tried to resolve those situations. And that picture stuck in my head all these years. And when I was a little bit older, a couple of other things happened, one of which was a girl in my sixth grade class was being bullied and came to me and asked me to talk to the people that were bullying her and to get them to stop. And I did. And then I started thinking, why did she come to me? What did she see in me that might be able to help her? And a few other incidents, and those incidents all sort of came together in a way that said, you know what? I am not afraid to stand up and step up, even though I, like, as Lauren Arthur described herself, was really shy. But I knew that when there were things more important than how comfortable I felt, and that I needed to stand up and step up to get rid of the problems and to help craft solutions. And so when I first ran for school board, that was my goal. And I've been running for office and serving ever since, and finding a lot of reward in doing that, and to try to put the ideals and ideas and voices of others forward. This is my last session. I'll be terming out, and I'm excited about becoming a grandma towards the end of this session. But I also know that the people that are there serving and the people that are running there are some great people, and I know we'll be in terrific hands going forward. Lauren or Angela, would you like to share the FRA story? I think it's interesting because I think part of this was how we got together unexpectedly as people across the aisle, but as women legislators, and the first chance we really had to make a big difference and come together since the beginning of the writing of our book.
Sure. So I'll be happy to share the story of the FRA renewal. The FRA stands for Federal Reimbursement Allowance, and it's basically a tax, a self-imposed tax that healthcare providers have authorized, and it allows our state to pull down billions of dollars in federal funds for our healthcare system. It's a tax that must be reauthorized by the General Assembly or the legislature. Sometimes it's every year, sometimes it's every few years, but the legislature must reauthorize that tax so that we can pull down the billions of dollars in federal funding that our healthcare system depends on. This year, there was a controversial amendment added to the FRA that would, in effect, ban contraceptives, the coverage, our Medicaid program from paying for contraceptives. It was put on as a way of, showing a pro-life stance, or that it was portrayed as if you oppose abortion, then you should vote for this amendment. But we also knew that that amendment was going to jeopardize our entire Medicaid program, that it would knock us out of compliance and that we would lose billions of dollars in federal funding and the authorization or continuation of our Medicaid program and the money that came from it. So the women senators recognized the seriousness of the situation. There were multiple attempts to broker a deal or work out some sort of agreement, and but ultimately the sponsor and a few senators were pretty insistent that that language remain. The women came together, we sat down, we talked through our concerns about access to contraceptives, but also the fear and the devastating consequences that would come from not reauthorizing that FRA. We came up with a plan. We introduced that plan to appropriate stakeholders, and really it was just the sheer will of the women senators saying, we're going to get this done, and this is the way that we believe is the best path forward. And thankfully, you know, after days and days, weeks, eventual special session where we had to come back, the women senators were able to broker this deal, and we reauthorized our FRA. We remained in compliance, and we ensured that women still had access to contraceptives. So it was an all-around win, and I think it's just one example of many of the kind of ways that the women of the Senate can come together and charter a path forward.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Angela, I think we're going to open it in a minute to questions, but is there anything that you want to add before we do that? You're good? I'm actually, okay. I'm struggling a little bit to hear you, but if there are questions, I don't know if they're coming through in the chat or if you want to raise your hand, but I think Terry has one. I think she has to be unmuted.
Yes, I'm impressed with the power of women. And I was just thinking for your next book, wow, Will of Women. And I saw that my daughter's on, she's the development director for Ready Readers. You aimed the first book at fourth graders. If there could be something aimed at preschoolers that could talk about how when women rule, they work together.
Well, Terry and others may want to participate too. So this book, you know, none of us was authors, or that I know of, none of us was an author coming in. This book, we say it's for fourth graders because we want it to be for fourth graders because we want them at that grade level to be able to read. But what I will tell you is the interesting thing about this book, and I think it's a little too old for a preschooler, but one page is a story. One page is someone's journey to the Senate. So there are pictures in here, there are little snippets, there are things that even young children may understand. I don't know that we're going into the book writing business. I don't know that we're going to become partners and authors going forward, but we're really proud of the work that we have done. And again, it's not finished yet. We still have a bill to pass. We still have places to go around the state to help promote literacy. And really, we can use your help in that. So Angela, Lauren, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I would just say that we know that representation matters. And one of my favorite stories, so I love to visit, we visit fourth grade classrooms because fourth graders learn about state government. And I remember coming into a classroom and two little girls ran up to me and they said, we're learning about our state legislature. Are you in the House or are you in the Senate? And I said, I'm in the Senate. And they said, one little girl turned to the other and she goes, I knew it. Women can do anything. And I thought that was just such a heartening moment and really affirming for me that like it is important that young women see a woman senator representing them and serving as their voice. And the more women we can get elected, the better for that reason. The more people from diverse backgrounds and experiences, the better. So, you know, I agree. It's never too young to start planting those seeds, because we need those seeds to grow, and we need people to run for office and to serve their communities, and people who are doing it for the right reasons.
Senator Mosley, anything that you'd like to add? When there is, I hope you'll just mute yourself and come on in. All right. Thank you, Terry, for that question. Additional questions?
So we have a question in the chat from Betsy Schmidt, who asked, what is it about women's leadership that's more effective than the General Assembly?
Well, from my perspective, and so here's what I will say. I think that what I noticed and a difference with the people that are up here is that the women are really trying, and you know, I hate to gender bash, but I think that the women, especially because of these relationships we've developed, we're really trying to sit down and talk to each other, but more importantly, to listen to each other. And I think that when you are able to listen as a leader and to hear from someone, even though it's someone with whom you disagree on most things, but when you're able to try to understand their perspective and hear it, then maybe you can find ways to move forward together. So, you know, there are fewer of us, and yet we were able to do something together to overcome what we saw as a big problem. No, I don't think it's appropriate to eliminate birth control in the state of Missouri. And women on both sides of the aisle heard that and could see it, and we moved forward together. So I think that listening is an important part of strong, good leadership that people will respect because they will feel heard. And so much of being a leader is hearing from the people with whom you are working and for whom you are working. Lauren, anything? I see that Angela's transitioning from her car, I guess, inside. So.
It's been my experience that particularly the 11 women senators are really solutions oriented. And again, if you've seen any headlines about the Missouri Senate, there's been a lot of really personal and petty political, I mean, they started as political attacks and they've turned pretty personal. And I think a lot of that is personality driven, ego driven. And when it comes to the women, we tend to focus instead on solutions, on a problem, and then working through appropriate solutions. And so a lot of that, you know, personality, ego-driven approach doesn't factor into what we're trying to accomplish. Again, that's sort of a broad generalization, but it's just been my experience that we all recognize if we can define a problem, then we can all offer solutions and find some sort of compromise.
Well, and related to that, there are studies that show that women have to be asked several times to run for office, and men just decide that this is something they want to do and they do it. They don't feel like they need to check in or get permission. And again, generalizations, but I think that it holds true. I think that the sense I get from that is that women want to know that they're doing this for the right reasons. And I'm not saying that men don't, or that all men do or don't, but it's just a difference in how we approach things. Additional questions?
So if I can jump in to ask, I'm curious because I appreciate that you're talking about everyone being so solution oriented, and yet I'm sure there's some people, maybe some people on this call, maybe some people in other spaces who would be really upset at you for working with some of the people that you're talking about because they find some other policies that they support so deeply reprehensible. So could you just speak more to how do you balance trying to work towards the goals and the solutions that you want or need for your constituents, with also having a balance, sometimes compromising, not even necessarily compromising in terms of your vote, but, you know, kind of feeling emotionally compromising when you might have constituents telling you, don't even talk to that person?
I don't know that I've ever had a constituent tell me not to talk to someone. And I think what we'll find is that, as you've heard in politics so often, there are strange bedfellows. So there is someone who I will disagree on almost everything. And yet that person chairs a committee or has a particular piece of legislation that where we may agree, we may have common ground. So I think especially in our chamber, in a Senate of 34, where you really get to know each other pretty well, you learn to navigate those places. And you learn that sometimes you have to compartmentalize things a little bit. And we all know who we are and where we are. And, you know, I had to call a senator this week over the break to say, will you hear my bill in committee? And it's a senator that he's one of the people blocking one of the bills that I'm trying to get, that another senator and I are trying to get to move forward. So where we can find common ground, we do. And when we can't, and when we have to fight each other or stand up strongly against bills, we will. And I think it's because I'm able to see that what's important here is the outcome of the legislation to support the people that I am here to represent, not whether I am best buddies with somebody who is trying to block something or put something else forward. So the personalities can get in the way, but I have to set them aside and do the policy work that I was sent here to do.
And I'll add, it's been my experience, it's really hard to change someone's mind if you shout at them, tell them how wrong they are, if you attack them personally. Like that's if you want to be effective and if you really want to make a difference, that's not typically the best approach to take, because automatically I know that I shut down if someone approaches me in that way. And if we really are looking at trying to improve a situation or at least find some sort of common understanding, like their education is a really important role. And I think you have to have some trust and a belief that the other person is trying to do their best. And from that place, you can start to have a real dialogue. And otherwise, if you have just an adversarial relationship, it's really difficult to get anywhere without remaining in those entrenched positions. So that's just been my experience as a human, that it's better to try and have some, to try and relate to someone instead of attacking them. But to your point, I think our political system is set up in a way to incentivize polarized positions, sort of that combativeness. On social media, just anecdotally, I've noticed that when I talk about a bipartisan bill that I passed, it receives some support and some, I garner some attention for it. But if I, cheer for my team and put the other guys down, that tends to get a lot more activity and attention. So I think, we all have to look at why that is and how we can hopefully move away from that. And because I really do believe that most people are interested in the same things, and that our day-to-day problems are pretty similar across the state. And the more that we focus on fixing those big problems, the better for the people living here in Missouri.
Jill, Jason Pollock sort of summed it up beautifully. He said, as a father of 2 daughters and 2 sons who all need to see women represented in leadership, thank you. And thank you for framing women's leadership with specific terms: listening, connecting, solutions oriented. And in the Newmark Institute, that's exactly the core of how we reach out to other communities to connect with one another, and it's so important in today's world. But he has a question from the St. Louis Public Schools. How can we help bring the story of women's leadership and what that means to our students beyond buying the book?
Right. Well, thank you so much for those comments and for the question. And in the public schools, no one should have to buy the book. We have plenty of books. I want you to know that they should be provided, one per every fourth grade class, one for each school library. And if schools need more, we are certainly happy to talk to them about it. We want this book in the hands of kids, and we want people from the Senate, particularly the women, to go to schools, to be invited to schools, to start talking about the idea of you can too. And yes, you have challenges. A lot of people do. How can we help you overcome them? And I really believe that our starting point is with literacy. If you can't read, you are going to continue to fall behind, and it puts obstacles in your way that don't have to be there. And I believe that's why we as Senate women decided to focus our efforts there. But we are available. As I said, we hope to be traveling the state after the session is over. But people who either represent St. Louis City Schools or some of us who live elsewhere but are willing to go there, want to get out, want to talk, and want to try to inspire somebody. If we change the trajectory of one child's life in a more positive direction, I can't think of anything more important to do than that. And if we can do that with more than one person, that would be delightful. I think Senator Arthur is going to leave. I don't know, Senator, if there's anything you wanted to say.
I just want to thank you all again for your interest. I think that is an important first step, and I'm hopeful that that the women, our best bet for getting common sense legislation passed this session is really to see the women come together and to stand up for each other and for our constituents and for the state. And I have a lot of hope that we'll be able to be successful with that this year. So please stay in touch, and thanks again. It was great to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you. And I just want to, I think Senator Washington is here with us now also.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that she had come back on. Sorry. Senator, so we've been talking a lot, and I don't know how long you've been on, but if there are any comments, Senator Washington, I thought you meant Senator Washington. It's great to have you here. So Senator Washington represents Kansas City, and she was a journalist, a lawyer. This is a woman who is well-versed in so many things, and it is so great to have her here with us. I'm just going to pause and say, Senator, we've been talking about the book. We've been talking about looking together and coming together, and I'm just going to be quiet and allow you to add whatever you'd like to add.
Hi, thank you. Sorry I was late, but I've had a lot of committee hearings today already. So I just want to echo a little bit of what I've been able to hear, and that is our collective ability as women to be on the forefront, to make sure that we are working with our especially young ladies. In Kansas City, we're going to provide books to everyone in the Kansas City School District, and then we'll go back and make sure that we try to, for all the girls in the 4th grade in the Kansas City School District, and then we'll go and give to all the girls that are in the charter schools, because half of the kids in my community are also charter school kids. And then we'll go from there after what we have. So this is a great opportunity. And as we do this, I'm going to actually go to about 10 schools myself to read those. And then I'll also go to a pre-K class, because my grandson is a pre-K. And I think he would, that might help him read better. But this is just an opportunity for us to show girls, especially as we are embarking on one of the most historic moments for women, especially African-American women this week, with the possible move forward for Judge Ketanji Jackson. And so hopefully we'll be able to bring all of those issues in to show girls, especially young ladies, how to continue to be strong, how to not shy back, and how how we are, you know, they are the forefront, they are the future. So this is a great opportunity for us bipartisan wise to do this. And it's something we could all agree on, and it wasn't controversial. And then of course, we're teaching them how to read and making sure that literacy is at the forefront. So I thank all of you for being interested, and anything that I can do or we can do to help get the word out. I happen to be in a couple of organizations that have chapters there in St. Louis, and they are women's organizations. And they'd be more than willing to help. They are Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which I believe has 3 chapters on the St. Louis, Missouri side, and then the Links Incorporated, which also has 2 chapters in St. Louis. And all of those women would be willing to help get that along, because those are the same mission. So thank you all for doing what you're doing. And thank you, Senator Schupp, for doing this.
Senator Washington, would you mind, the senators are sharing just a little bit of their own story. Would you mind sharing yours?
Oh yeah, no problem. So I'm the baby. I come from Kansas City. My mother was a single mother, which is very unusual in the 50s. My brothers would all, if they were alive today, would be 67, 69, and 72. But the unusual and unique thing about my mother is my mother was a computer programmer. So we use that as an inspiring story, because my mother was a computer programmer in 1950 when women were not computer programmers. And my mother continued to do that and use that as a catalyst for all of us. She decided to stay in the urban core because most times when African-American people, or when middle income people get a little money, they leave the urban core, which is why you have like North County and South County or whatever. And when you do that, you leave the degradation and the blight in the urban community because they don't have anyone to look up to. And so I really appreciate the story that my mother gave us, that foundation of staying in that community and teaching us service. I am a United Methodist person, and I've always been taught that when you wake up every morning, you do all the good you can for as long as you can, for as you can forever can. And so from there, I've always been of service. My mother always made us give our talents as much as possible. So I was good in math. And so I was required, even though I didn't want to tutor other kids in math. And that just gave me implanted service in me. From there, I went on to be a reporter because I truly believe that the press is the protector of the First Amendment, and it is the duty of the press to protect the public. And my brother who died last year was a journalist and had been a journalist for about 45 years. He worked, his last job was Al Jazeera. My sister's a CPA. My oldest brother was a pipe fitter. My second brother was a contractor. So my mother instilled in us excellence and service. And because of that, I went on to law school, and I concentrate on representing those people who can otherwise afford higher counsel. And then I felt like this was a great transition because I live in a community where everyone doesn't always want to speak up. So why not have somebody who can straddle all those worlds, you know, being a reporter, being a lawyer, continuing to live in the urban core, and being able to speak to all those different worlds of people and bring all that together and be that voice here in Jefferson City for those people. So that's kind of who I am. I'm a grandmother now. I don't like that word. I don't feel like I'm old enough to be a grandmother. So I'm Bibi, which is Swahili for grandmother, to 2 little boys that are really bad because I have a daughter, so I'm not used to boys. They're very, 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 very busy. But here, my biggest focus is juvenile justice reform. And also my family is from the country. Senator Schupp and I mean, most of the people here laugh at me because my family is not actually from Kansas City. They're from Saline County, Missouri. The biggest town we have there is Marshall. And so because of that, I have, I think, developed a unique ability to talk to Republican, the other side, because that is a big issue, agriculture. So another big push for me is urban agriculture as we bring that back to our cities. You all have some urban farms there that have received funding that I placed in the budget. And then this year, we're going to get a tax credit so that we can increase that as we have communities that are without grocery stores and communities without fresh food, and teaching kids how to do that and teaching our families. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you so much for asking.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one additional question if there is one. Otherwise, so great to see all of you. Thank you for inviting us today and letting us talk about our stories.
Jill, thank you. And thank all of the other senators who were able to come visit with us. This has been so helpful and informative, and we're deeply grateful. Thank you.
Thank you all for everything you do.
Take care. Thank you.